It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast to tell you that US Cellular is introducing US Mode. It's kind of like airplane mode, but it's for people. It's a way to set up your phone so it doesn't get in the way of people really being with each other. Block distractions and make way for real connection. Give it a try. Visit US Cellular in-store or online, and they'll help you set up your phone for US Mode for free, even if you're not a customer. Built for superior 5G connection and real human connection. US Cellular, built for us. Find out more at uscellular.com/find us.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back inside the lab to the Thursday episode of your source for off-season fantasy hockey news, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and we're going to continue the third round rewind of the 2022 Fantasy Hockey Draft. Alex DeBrincat, Adam Fox, Johnny Huberdeau, Timo Meier, and a whole lot more. Make sure you're tuned in, tapped in. Let's get this money, baby. Thank you for joining us.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? And thank you so much for tuning in to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I am privileged to be joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden on the West Coast, soon to be back on the East Coast. We'll let the details follow, but it is your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, on this side of the microphone. And thank you for making us your first listen every single day, even throughout the postseason, Steele, holy, even throughout the offseason. You know, I'm all about this paper, though, Steele. I cannot wait to get jumped on the next upcoming season. And I know I'm already hearing rumblings about upcoming drafts, where I want to be. You and I have a lot of news for our listeners, for our listener league. There's lots upcoming. But on today's episode, we want to finish up our third round rewind of the 2022 draft. The first half of this third round, Steele, got a little spicy. I love it. Today, Alex DeBrincat, Adam Fox, Johnny Huberdeau, Timo Meier, Sidney Crosby, and John Carlson. You see the names up there on the screen, and if you don't, make sure you head over to YouTube and subscribe. But, Steele, I want to toss it over to you, as I usually do, because this is a little bit of a player that we've talked a lot about. So, what are you expecting for Alex DeBrincat headed into this season? Maybe let's start there, and then hit me with your take on where he was drafted in our listener league.
I'm expecting Alex DeBrincat to have a whole lot of fun playing in Detroit, playing alongside Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, Moritz Seider, a couple of other guys in the top six group as well. So I think he's going to have a lot of fun. You know, he's from the Michigan area. That's where he wanted to go, and he's probably super ecstatic to be there now. A part of the Detroit Red Wings organization. I think, you know, he's a 40-goal scorer. You know, he's scored 40 goals twice in his career, maybe, you know, 3 times if it wasn't that shortened season. Right. But he's a 40-goal scorer in the NHL, 70-plus points, no problem. That's exactly where he is right now in his realm. Mm-hmm. He's becoming a more physical player as well, 100-plus hits the last 2 seasons. Each year. He's lethal on the power play, gets a ton of power play goals, so you can expect him to be a special teams juggernaut. His ADP was 42.5, and I think this is exactly where he should be getting drafted. I think the end of the third round, early fourth round is where he is at right now currently. Again, like, he's coming off a 66-point season, playing with, again, some of the best young players in the NHL with the Ottawa Senators. 66 points and in full 82 games, minus 31 is, you know, an awful stat to see.
Yes, it is.
But he likes to shoot the puck a lot. Like I said, he had he had 11 power play goals, 14 power play goals the year before that. So
yes, sir.
He's a power play juggernaut. I think, you know, end of the third round, early fourth is exactly where he should go.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of tough, actually. You know, he popped 78 points and 41 goals. I understand maybe why the GM in this situation reached a little bit, especially after I think you and I also talked a whole lot about going from Chicago. And yeah, he had Patty Kane feeding him the biscuit, but he was going to play with much more talented forwards around him.
Yeah.
And he did get that opportunity. There were some growing pains. Of course, he had success. Minus 31 might be more so indicative about how bad the Ottawa Senators were overall defensively. So I wouldn't actually get too much hung up on that. Where I want to look at Alex DeBrincat, though, you mentioned it. A guy that can bring 30-plus goal-scoring ability and 100-plus hits, I'm fine taking him in that 4th round. If you can get him in the 5th round, I think people are starting to sleep. The one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, honestly, Steele, is, and it's happened before with the Detroit Red Wings, and I have been a victim of it. The second we start thinking this team's ready to really turn the page and we put too much expectations, they seem to regress. So I'm just a little bit concerned because after that top line, and sure, they're balanced, sure, they have the veterans, Perron, Kopp, and otherwise. I'm just a little bit worried that, let's say that combination of the trio, we've never seen them play together. Let's say it doesn't work out. I just don't want to go out there because my gut instinct wants to say exactly what you're thinking. Going home, go into a position where he can maybe really be that guy. It all makes sense that you want to go out there and take him really high. Just let's be careful. And what I wanted to say lastly is I'm really intrigued to see who they throw him out there in training camp. What are the combinations? Maybe they go a little bit veteran with the DeBrincat. I don't know, but at the end of the day, for sure, you mentioned the hits. The peripherals are coming along nicely. There is going to be a successful season from DeBrincat. I just can't put my finger on what that means. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, and I think we can expect the overall team to be a lot better. I think Andrew Kopp as the second-line centerman, he didn't provide a lot of offensive ability there. I think he's more fitted for that third-line centerman role, and he can actually thrive there alongside guys like Robbie Fabry and Daniel Sprong, other guys that, Daniel Sprong, who just got added, JT Compher now becoming that second-line center. So I think Alex DeBrincat, again, he's going to have a lot of fun this year. Again, we were high on Detroit last season. It didn't pan out that
too early.
way.
We were
a little too early. We were maybe a year or two too early.
Season.
Yeah, 1 or 2 years a little early on the Detroit Red Wings, but it'll be fun to see how Alex DeBrincat does in training camp and moving forward with the Red Wings next season. The Eastern Conference is just becoming elite. To me, it's so hard. The Metro and the Atlantic just look deadly with every single team except for maybe one in each conference. So going over now to Adam Fox, a part of the New York Rangers, a team that I've been really high on the last 2 seasons to actually win the cup. The last 2 years they were my team to win, and a big disappointment the last 2 playoffs for the New York Rangers. But Adam Fox was your pick, so I'll throw it over to you about how you felt he did with this season and where you think he should go next year.
And this is what I want your immediate take on, because it was too high. It was a reach. And this is one of those things that happened to me is I invest in players that I think in my mind are going to build that team that wins on the ice. And Adam Fox is that guy. And that doesn't always translate to fantasy success.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to separate that, right, Steele? And I think, you've highlighted it. I've mentioned it. I'm a victim of that. Nick Suzuki's of the world. Adam Fox's. Yes, if I'm the GM on the real ice, this is fantasy. So I think I was a victim of getting caught up in how good Adam Fox's overall game is. And his stats got bumped up in that 2021 season, 78 points, 37 assists. Or sorry, I'm looking at the wrong guy now.
74 points.
74 points, 63 assists. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I reached a little bit because I expected him to even take another step. It didn't happen, but I'll say this. It was too high in this draft for sure, but I really wouldn't let Adam Fox slip too much farther in this upcoming draft. I'm going to say 6th round. I'd be very comfortable taking Adam Fox. Not much later than the 5th.
Again, I couldn't agree with more with what you just said. His ADP was 20.9, so he was actually getting drafted on average in the 2nd round, a lot earlier than you were drafting than when you drafted him. And again, I don't think he's quite a 2nd round pick. The thing that Adam Fox, like you said, Adam Fox is such a talent. 12 goals, 72 points this past year. He racks up the assist on the power play. Had 29 power play points, and only one of them was a goal. So he is the quarterback that, again, alongside Zibanejad and Panarin, gets it done on special teams. The thing that concerns me about Adam Fox is the peripheral stats. That's where you lose a ton of fantasy value. Only 30 penalty minutes, less than 160 shots the last 4 years. Every single year he's been in the NHL, less than 160 shots, only 25 hits. I understand that's not part of his game, but as a defenseman, you think he'd be laying the ball a little bit more. So I agree with you. I think he does fall down to the 5th and 6th round. I think people get a little bit caught on the point production. And that's why, for me personally, when we're drafting, those peripheral stats mean so much when I'm drafting my teams, because a player he might put up 72 points and that looks great. But if he's not getting the shots, the hits, the blocks, and the other peripheral stats that come along with it, that drives his fantasy value down. So I think 5th, late 5th, maybe even early 6th, if you can get him there, that's great. I think that's exactly where he falls.
It's a learning process. And I think one of the aspects with Adam Fox that we need to also remember, he is only 25 years old, Steele. He has only really played now, 4 NHL seasons, and one of those was a COVID shortened season. So let's call it 3.75. I think he is about to hit his prime, and he is, if you're talking about his age. And this is one of those scenarios, and you're going to hear it a lot from Steele and I. Remember what the optics are on this player. The optics are you took him pretty high and he didn't maybe perform. That means jump on this man, because he is still bringing that quality. And just because he only fell 2 points short of his point total before, Steele. So that, to me, yes, I took him a little bit too early. I would absolutely love to have Adam Fox back on my team if I can get him in that 6th round, maybe beginning of the 7th, because I honestly think with what's going to happen now with a come up from Keandre Miller, a bit of a bounce back from my boy Shesty, I should say our boy, I think the New York Rangers are set to steamroll on that Metro division. And I don't mean win by 10 points. I mean flex their muscle as the team in that division. Let's see what happens there. We got a lot more to talk about on today's episode. Steele and I said we're going to keep it short. We were a little bit of a BS lie on that one because we got a lot more takes for this fantasy scenario. Johnny Huberdeau, Timo Meier, Sidney Crosby, John Carlson, and others. But today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Take your first swing at betting on the MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times back on your first bet amount and bonus bets, up to $200, people. That's right, just $20 and you'll land $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you could be spending on everything from the money line to the total to who you think cranks that first home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid out instantly. I don't know what else you need to hear. There's no better place to bet on the MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Head over and sign up at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get up to $200 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, official sportsbook of Major League Baseball.
What's up, everybody? David Harrison here of the Locked On Commanders podcast. When life gets crazy, and honestly, when doesn't it? Walmart helps you keep it all together now with a little extra help from Instacart. If you need your groceries now-ish, but your options for going to Walmart are later-ish or never-ish, you can get everything you need delivered through Instacart right to your door in as fast as an hour. Skip the shop and savor more of your crazy busy life with Walmart and Instacart. Visit instacart.com to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum order $10. Additional terms apply.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your favorite team from all 4 major sports leagues, including the NCAA, your team every single day. And make sure you hit that subscribe and follow button. Leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us some comments on the YouTube channel. We really appreciate all the listeners, communicating, asking for advice. Any questions you have out there, don't be afraid. Just message us on Twitter or leave a comment on the YouTube channel. We really do appreciate conversing with all of our listeners out there. Continuing, though, on the 2022 Draft Rewind, Round 3, this next player, Jonathan Huberdeau coming in at 28th overall in our fantasy league. And obviously at the time, you get it. He's coming off a 115-point season with the Florida Panthers. Probably the biggest bust of all fantasy draft picks last season. His preseason rank before the draft even was up, his preseason rank was 10. He was projected to go in the first round. His ADP was actually 11.5. So majority people did draft him in that first round, but he finished the season. His rank was 194. Absolute bust of a pick in the third round. So even to get him in the third round was kind of shocking that he dropped that far. But
it is
an absolute bust. My projections for Huberdeau coming up this next season with the Flames. I understand it's been a chaotic ride the last 2 seasons for Flames and the Flames fans out there.
Yep.
I think we could see Huberdeau at least get 20 goals. He had 15 last year. I can see him getting 20 goals and having a 50-55 assist season. But I would be fading Huberdeau hard because those peripheral stats, like we just talked about with Adam Fox, his peripheral stats dropped off tremendously. He went from over 220 shots down to like 120 in the next season. So I would be fading Huberdeau to at least the 6th round.
I would be fading him as well, Steele. That, I think, is the 100% takeaway because how could you not? It's not only the lack of production. You and I have, for some reason, watched way too many Calgary Flames games to end that season. And I think you and I can both agree that was the hardest team to watch in the NHL for most of the season for a number of reasons. But at the end of all of what we're going to say about the negatives of what Jonathan Huberdeau's season was last year, I actually think he's going to have a bounce back season. And maybe that's easy to say given how bad he was last year. But let's not forget the caliber of what went on. Sure, a lot went on in terms of he changed franchises, he changes conferences, he changes coasts.
Yeah.
But now I want to see it because if it doesn't happen this year, I'm ready to write this guy off 100% as one of those flash in the pans. That triple-digit point getters, actually, that doesn't happen too often, Steele. But I'm actually very, very intrigued about maybe getting sneaky with Jonathan Huberdeau with a lot of people ready to write him off completely. So I love that angle that you're starting to bring up here because also, if you want to just bring up what the Calgary Flames have, they still got Nas. They still got Elias Lindholm. And yeah, they lost to Foley. They lost Kachuk. They lost Gaudreau. They're still going to score some goals.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
they changed coaches as well, too. That was a big problem for Calgary last year.
Here we go. Thank you very much. And some of those things are very tough to peg, like they're intangibles. Yeah. So that's, I think, even more to your point about definitely don't reach with Huberdeau. Like even if you pass on him and someone else takes him, that's okay. You don't want to be that guy who goes, oh my goodness, Jonathan Huberdeau's here. Here's a sexy name and take him too early. So at the end of the day, and I love saying that these days, Steele, I don't know what it is. At the end of the day, I'm bringing it all back. Igor Sharangovich is also another one of these names because, he's down the depth chart right now in terms of projected lines. Mm-hmm. This man is going to get a look on that top 6, no doubt. But we're going to talk a lot about a whole bunch of other breakdowns. Why don't we get to our next player because we got a few more for today's episode.
Sidney Crosby and John Carlson to wrap things up, but we do got to talk about Timo Meier coming in at 27th overall. And I'll leave this one real short. I said this all season long, especially after being traded to the New Jersey Devils. Right when he was traded, I was like, both Jack Hughes and Timo Meier are second-round draft picks. They will go pretty much back-to-back, early third round at the latest. But this guy puts up ridiculous stats all around the board. 300-plus shots, 150-plus hits. Again, a 40-goal scorer, maybe even every year now that he's playing with more skilled players in New Jersey now. So he's a lethal goal scorer, especially on the power play. He's a juggernaut. And I think him and Jack Hughes are just going to have a lot of fun together this next season now that they're getting to play a full year together.
Well, I might actually take JT Miller before. No, I'm kidding. We're not going down that route. But when I look at this lineup for the New Jersey Devils, in all seriousness, still, even all the way down to the third line, they're projecting Eric Haula, Alexander Holtz, and Andre Palat on that third line. If you can roll a line with that kind of balance, and I know Holtz is a young gun, allowing Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Dawson Mercer, Tyler Toffoli, Timo Meier, and Jesper Bratt as your top 6 to function. Yep. And they don't actually need to take all that weight because you know your third line might actually still bring it. My goodness, I'm actually loving. And when I look at this draft choice, selection 27th, I'm fine right there for Timo Meier again this year. I'm totally with you. If he's right there in that top of the third round, middle of the third round, because of all those peripherals, I love this player so much.
Yeah.
Is there a little bit of intrigue headed into this season because he hasn't had a full season? He fit right in, of course. I am very, very excited to see what this holds for the New Jersey Devils, but I don't think there's any other take other than this is going to mean big things for their fantasy value. It's going to mean big things for their offensive output. We could be wrong, but for now, everything is pointing in the direction of you need to be taking Timo at this spot. You need to be riding on these New Jersey Devils, and this team is going to score a SHIT ton of goals.
They will. One of the best offensive teams last year. It was crazy watching them again. That 13-game win streak was
you liked how I spelled that out, too, for all the younger listeners out there. This is a clean show.
We do appreciate spelling out that word. We are going to get to Sidney Crosby and John Carlson, 2 vets in the league, Pittsburgh Penguins and Washington Capitol players for their entire careers. So we will get to those 2 players, but first,
there's no off-season for the true NHL fan, and there are no off days for Locked On NHL. This off-season, Locked On NHL has you taken care of. In just 30 minutes every day, Locked On NHL will give you the latest on all the fireworks of the NHL off-season. Locked On NHL, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All-Pro wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins is headed to the Tennessee Titans.
The Titans would not have been able to realistically expect to go far in the playoffs this year unless they made this move.
Number 1 NHL draft pick Connor Bedard celebrated his 18th birthday on Monday by signing his first contract with the Chicago Blackhawks.
I'll go over all the crucial details of that contract.
And the WNBA back in action this week after the midseason All-Star break.
You saw Jewel Lloyd set the record for points in a WNBA All-Star game with 31.
For more on all these stories, check out new episodes of Locked On Titans, Locked On Blackhawks, and Locked On Women's Basketball. Then listen to Locked On's new series, Paving the Way. Each episode highlights a different voice from around the network. A Locked On host whose journey in the industry has helped pave the way toward creating a more inclusive and diverse media landscape. That's Paving the Way, presented by State Farm. Available now on the Locked On Presents podcast feed.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Please hit that subscribe, hit the follow button. Make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate all the love and support out there. And that's why we return the favor with these podcasts, these episodes every single day, Monday through Friday, with our next player on the list, Sidney Crosby, coming in at 26th overall. And again, I understand why he fell down to the third round. I actually thought he was going to fall down a little bit longer when we were doing this draft. And I understand because there's injury concern. There's injury concern to have, but wow, he actually played a full 82-game season, goes off for 33 goals and 93 points. He's still getting it done offensively, over 250 shots, 71 hits.
Yep.
To me, he's a second-round draft pick, late second-round draft pick.
100%. There's just too many intriguing younger names that I would rather invest in ahead of Sidney Crosby, and that means no disrespect to Sid. And actually, Steele, you know how much respect I've given to this player. Maybe too much respect. I've been on this show.
You've won all your money on player props.
There you go. So I have to pay this man his credit due. And honestly, though, I think second round is perfect because, like I just said, there are too many younger names and intriguing, stars, perhaps, that I want to risk on first. But right after my first pick, Steele, if I am going for, let's say, a Jack Hughes, let's say a whoever, The second pick I'm going for is definitely Sidney Crosby, and why not? 33 goals, 60 assists, 255 shots on net. And we've talked a little bit about other players' peripherals kind of not being intriguing enough that you don't want to take him. I don't think Sid that's that guy. 52 penalty minutes, still playing with edge, 47 block shots, 71 hits. He's just there enough on the peripherals for me that it fully backs up what you're saying. End of the second round, if you're sleeping on Sid much longer, because you know what I'm going to say next, don't you? He knows this is his last kick at the can. I'm not talking next year, Steele. I'm talking this season for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Your boy Sid is going to go off. He knows this is his last real good. Look, my boy's going to be 36 years old, Steele. He's a competitor. He knows that window for winning is closing. If you take Sidney Crosby before me, Steele, I'm going to be knocking. I know I can see your head working. I'm going to be knocking on your door for a trade. But realistically, and I'll leave it at this, that might be the angle for Keeper Dynasty, because you can get a whole ton of return for Sid in that situation this year.
You saw the gears turning.
I
right
saw
there.
it. I'm like, I knew you were going to say it.
I was thinking about it. I won't try to snake you too much. Hopefully I do get my draft. Well, the thing is, too, it's a snake draft. Either I'm picking before you or you're picking before me in the next round. So we're going to be snaking each other during the snake draft next season. True. But the last player on this list in the third round, John Carlson, falling in at 25th overall. Obviously had a scary injury this past year, only played 40 games, had 29 points. Still, for 40 games, put up 124 shots, 87 blocks, and 42 hits. There's fantasy value to be had. When he is healthy, he's one of the best defensemen in the league, in my opinion. And I'm going to go based off of the year prior, because he actually played a full year, 78 games, had 71 points. He finished 5th in fantasy points amongst defensemen in the year prior. And he's still one of the best. He's a power play quarterback, juggernaut, special teams right there with Alex Ovechkin. So, yeah, I can see, obviously, with the injury, it was a bad pick, because you can't predict injuries like that. Right. But John Carlson, for me, there's still a ton of fantasy value to be had, even at he's going to be 34 years old. He's 33 years old right now.
Yes, sir.
So he'll be 34 when the season starts. Still a veteran in the league. If he plays a full season, he's fully healthy. Again, he's one of my favorites to watch on the blue line.
I agree.
Fourth, fifth round, easily.
I know how high you are on this player, and I have to give you your respect due, because I think if you aren't willing to do that, take a look at what he was still able to do after he came back from that injury.
Yeah.
Most players would have retired at that age, Steele, and he just has so much quality. And I wanted to bring up the power play stats for the Washington Capitals, even with him missing that major chunk of games and the Washington Capitals having a bunch of injuries and a bunch of different lineups all year long. They still finished right there on the cusp in the top half of the power play in the league, 21.2%. That's 16th best in the league. So I'm going to say, and I think one of the topics that I wanted to bring up headed into this season, and you and I will do a lot of team projections, division breakdowns, and everything that the fantasy cats out there need. But I mentioned this to you. Martin Faravari, Rasmus Sandin, Nick Jensen, Joel Edmondson, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk. I'm not ready to sell them on all the fantasy value, but there's some nice balance here to make sure that John Carlson can do his thing and quarterback this power play and put up the points that we know he can. So to me, looking at his draft in this position, personally, it's a little high. Headed into this season, it's for sure high, but it's not much off. I'm with you. I would love John Carlson on my team. I think also headed into this I always call it spring training, into training camps, I want to keep my eye on who they're out there with, because if for some reason Sandin and John Carlson, and I don't mean for some reason, when they do pair up on that power play one, you know that's going to mean points. So I'm with you on that prediction. But what do you think about that? Because Sandin and Carlson, with Ovi and otherwise, they're going to get points on that power play.
Sandin looked really impressive when he was in Washington after the trade from Toronto. So he really stepped up his game. And again, that could be the guy after John Carlson leaves potentially. He really does. Even the last few seasons with Toronto, he's really developed and he's coming along quite well. So Rasmus Sandin went from being one of those guys that you just pick up every now and again to a draftable defenseman now because he looks legit.
Agreed.
We're gonna have to continue this list. It's getting a little hot in this room. Let's end it out here. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure, again, you're tuning in Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. Listen at the gym, on your way to work, whenever you got the time. Just make sure you're tuning in. And thank you so much again. Have a great day. Good luck with all your summer bets out there. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
All-Pro wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins is headed to the Tennessee Titans.
The Titans would not have been able to realistically expect to go far in the playoffs this year unless they made this move.
Number 1 NHL draft pick Connor Bedard celebrated his 18th birthday on Monday by signing his first contract with the Chicago Blackhawks.
I'll go over all the crucial details of that contract.
And the WNBA back in action this week after the midseason All-Star break.
You saw Jewel Lloyd set the record for points in a WNBA All-Star game with 31.
For more on all these stories, check out new episodes of Locked On Titans, Locked On Blackhawks, and Locked On Women's Basketball. Then listen to Locked On's new series, Paving the Way. Each episode highlights a different voice from around the network. A Locked On host whose journey in the industry has helped pave the way toward creating a more inclusive and diverse media landscape. That's Paving the Way, presented by State Farm. Available now on the Locked On Presents podcast feed.